It's no secret that so goes Jose Ramirez, so go the Cleveland Guardians. So why would we argue for him to play less in 2024? We're going to talk about load management and depth. We're also going to talk about building depth in the bullpen and a name that should be on your radar for 2024. Ballpark renovations have started. We're going to talk about why Cleveland absolutely has to nail these in the coming future. And if we have time, we'll talk about yet another team targeting starting pitching this offseason.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody, or whenever you're listening to this. That's a Friday edition, though, of Locked On Guardians. Welcome to the show. As you can see, I am flying, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening. I'm Justin Ladd. I'm flying solo today with Jeff off for teacher things. I don't have a cat here to hit me. I don't have any pets. My wife's allergic, so I don't know. Maybe we can wish Jeff, hope Jeff's doing well. If you're watching on YouTube, we have the little GIF up there of Jeff being hit by his cat that a viewer made for us. So we appreciate that. Whenever you're listening, wherever you're listening, we do appreciate it. We are free wherever you get podcasts, and we have your team covered every day. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe on YouTube yet, please do that. Jeff responds to comments on YouTube every single day, and you see fun gifs like Jeff's cat swatting him in the face, even when he's not here. I made sure to upload that just for Jeff and just for all people who love cats. We've actually got a lot to talk about today on a solo episode, so I appreciate you joining me. Load management in the NBA is kind of a hot topic right now, or it has been a hot topic. And of course, the NBA is trying to find a way to combat that for whatever reason. I know there's a lot of arguments about the science behind that and other weird stuff on that. So we're going to get into why Jose Ramirez actually should play less in 2024. I know that seems like a very goofy concept, but the Guardians like to zig when everybody else is zagging, and zigging in this case might actually benefit them in some ways. We're also going to talk about a reliever that popped on one of my favorite writers' radars for 2024, which Jeff has brought up before, and we should have talked about him before, and we should make more mention of him going forward. He said ballpark renovations have started. This is an important thing on the Guardians list that probably might be more important than we think, other than just aesthetics. And then, like I said, if we have time, we'll talk about another team targeting starting pitching this offseason. Like everybody's going to be targeting starting pitching. Let's take a moment to stop arguing about when pitchers are taken out of games in the postseason. I know I had a lot to say on Twitter about that on Thursday night, if you follow. But there's a good reason for that, and there's a good reason because it's depth and trusting the data and trusting playing the odds. Odds are Jose Ramirez, look, he is 31. He'll be 30. He'll be 31 all of next season. He won't turn 32 until almost with the season being over. Hopefully, playing in the postseason, he'll play a few more months at 32 next year. But he's going to be 31, and he plays a lot of games. He plays very aggressively. He steals home. He tries to get in the lineup every day. He's gotten into a skirmish this year. He's been a 2020 player at least 3 years in a row now, and 5 of the last 6 years. And he has played no less, except for the 1 year, he played 129 games in 2018, and that was due, or 2019, I should say, and that was due to his wrist issue that he had to have surgery on the hamate that kept him out. And he still tried to come back, and he still did come back for 2 games, and he hit 2 home runs without any minor league rehab assignment because the minor leagues are over at that point. I don't know if we can really say if Jose Ramirez, we don't know if there's any injury this year. He definitely wasn't good in September. We talked about he was actually good in September. Okay, it was 122. It was towards the end of the season. August, he wasn't very good. And we talked about how, the loss of Josh Naylor really hurt him there. Cleveland, first of all, has to stop wasting their Jose Ramirez prime years at this point, right? Like I said, he's going to be 32 next year. He'll be 31 all of next season. But Cleveland's got to stop wasting these years, and they have to figure out a way to get the most out of Jose Ramirez and get the most out of their team and win while they have him on this contract, because this situation probably won't come around again for them. This is a special Hall of Fame level player that stayed in Cleveland for less money and asked for no trade clause to stay, no matter what some reporters might say about asking for him to go to other teams in Seattle. it's a very special case, and Cleveland needs to take advantage of it while they can. And I think part of that might be playing him less next year. Look, the age factors in here. Jose Ramirez also has the body type that I don't want to say we know for sure whether or not he's going to wear down, but just looking at his body type, there's a good chance that he may decline quicker when he gets into his 30s. I mean, he did have a down year this year by his standards at a 123 WRC plus, his lowest slugging percentage since his first year as a full timer in 2016. It was 462 when he really wasn't a power hitter. It's also his worst year by the 2 year, the 2018 struggle and the 2019 struggle. He had worse WAR just because of those offensive issues, but he played good this year. He just, are there 6-7 win seasons left for Jose Ramirez at his peak? I don't know if those exist anymore. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. What Cleveland really needs to do, though, is get the most out of Jose Ramirez when it matters. And that might be the postseason. And again, I don't want to say wore down this year, but at some point, Father Time is going to come for him, and the body type might not help, and the style of play might not help. We've seen it to other players that weren't even as good as him, that it wears down. Cleveland needs to find a way to build depth to help Jose Ramirez play less. And I know it is hard to get Jose Ramirez out of the lineup. He talks all the time about wanting to play every day. He fights to get his name in the lineup. But it might be best for the Guardians, might be best for the player going forward. And I know people are thinking, well, they need Jose Ramirez to play every day to make the playoffs because this is not a good team. This is not a great lineup. If they're going to get in, Jose Ramirez has to carry the load. And yeah, they need to get in. They need to get in the playoffs. And I think they have the pitching to do it next year. Whether or not Shane Bieber is here, I guess you're hoping Tristan McKenzie's elbow holds up next year. We'll see what happens. You got the big three. You're going to hope to get Daniel Espino and Joey Cantillo up to the majors next year if Espino's healthy. We'll hope that McKenzie's elbow holds on. We'll see what they do with Shane Bieber in the offseason. But, you've got some other players in this line. You've got Steven Kwan. You've got Andres Jimenez. Those guys are league average hitters. Not saying they can carry the load, but they can hit. We saw what Josh Naylor could do last year. Keeping him healthy is another thing to think about, too, in terms of load management. You got Bo Naylor, who emerged last year, and development's not linear. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen from him in year 2, but you feel pretty good about where he's at offensively, maybe taking the gloves off him a little bit. Cal Manzardo, I don't see a whole lot of arguments to not have him in the lineup game 1 of 2024, an open day lineup. And you've got some other pieces, right? You've got David Fry, who can hit lefties. Gabby Arias hits righties really well, but not lefties. You got to figure out what's going on there. Ramon Laureano hits lefties very well. You've got a use case for him against lefties and playing good defense and running the bases. Will Brennan, a below average season on both sides of the ball. He was a good defender, by the way. Probably could have been nominated for a Gold Glove if you enjoyed that discussion yesterday. The Gold Glove is such a bear of a discussion anymore. I don't know if it's even worth the half hour we took to debate it all. Cleveland needs to upgrade the outfield. That we've said multiple times that Steven Kwan can't be your best outfielder next year, and that stretches them out strong. And you got to figure out the outfield. Ramon Laureano can be a piece of that, whether it's platooning or whatever. I think you can do a lot of good with him. Make room for Chase Slaughter. Go get an outfielder. And we talked yesterday about Juan Soto or 2 days ago, and I don't think Soto is the answer here for at least 1 year, depending what you do. Like, I don't think this team can afford to trade for a Juan Soto or Steven Kwan for a Juan Soto because that kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah, you've got your best outfielder right there, but you're subtracting years of having a league average outfielder, and this team probably isn't a Juan Soto away from a World Series contention. Maybe they are for 1 year. I don't know. Maybe they're not. Trading Shane Bieber. Someone had a good comment saying trading Bieber may not be worth it, considering they would need him next year if they're really going to go all in. But you've got some players here, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where does David Fry fit? Where does Gabby Arias fit? Where does Brian Rocchio fit? Where does Tyler Freeman fit? We think these guys can play. It would be better if you packaged them in a trade and brought back an everyday right fielder or center fielder, whatever you want to do, or left fielder, move Kwan to center, whatever you want to do. That would be the ideal situation here. And I think Cleveland still needs to target an outfielder this offseason, no matter what, at least one. If you really want to feel confident that you want to leave room open for someone like a George Valera or a Chase DeLauder or maybe Jonathan Rodriguez. I have a lot of doubts there still. to claim one of those outfield spots alongside Laureano and Quan and whatever you're going to do there. Maybe Juan Brito pushes somebody to the, gets reps in the outfield at some point, because I do feel good about him. The point is, though, you've got a roster that's got a lot of interesting players on it that might be able to play. And yes, this team needs to add power. A full season of Bo Naylor, Kyle Manzardo, maybe that adds a decent amount of power. If you get one of Valera or DeLauder up here to hit for some power, that could help you as well. Power is definitely something this team needs to add no matter what they do this offseason. They've got to figure out where it's going to come from. But this team needs to build depth, because if you're going to go out and whatever you do, free agency, trades, whatever you do, if you're not going to target the Juan Sotos, you're not going to target the big name guys out there, you're not going to do what Philly does. You're not going to go out and get Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner and Nick Castellanos. You're not going to go out and spend that kind of money. That's just the reality of Cleveland. So if you're not going to do that, you've got to find a way to build depth, whether that's signing undervalued free agents. I'm not saying, I guess I'm saying you got to do some Moneyball stuff here, but, or make some trades for some other, you got to build depth. You got to have guys that can play, that plug in every day. Look at the Twins this year. The Twins had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They had 10 players this year with the WRC plus over 100. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys who were close to 90 or above, 4 that were above 90 that played. Their worst player that played over 80 games was, or 40 games, was Christian Vasquez at 102. He was their backup catcher, even though they spent stupid money on him and didn't work. But they had guys like Kyle Farmer and Willie Castro and Donovan Solano, and they called up Matt Wallner, and Ryan Jeffers broke out, and Joey Gallo had a decent year despite the average. Michael Taylor had a solid year. They built depth. I know they were out in the first round of the playoffs. They had good pitching, but they got there by building depth. And if you're not a team like Cleveland, like I know they spent money on Buxton, and he was hurt all year, and they spent big money on Carlos Correa, who was hurt a lot this year, and quite frankly wasn't very good if you look at his numbers. That affords them a little bit there too. But if you're not going to go spend those big bucks, you've got 2 guys you spent big bucks on between Jose and Jimenez. Those are your $2 $100 million contracts, just like Correa and Buxton. Thank God they don't have an issue like Buxton right now with that money. But go out and build some depth. You've already got the pieces here. Go out and find guys in the free agent market to build depth. The 2013 Cleveland Indians, look at this. Yan Gomes had an OPS plus of 131. Ryan Rayburn, 151 off the bench. Those guys both played over 80 games. They had guys on the bench that could do the job and help you. And whether that's DHing Jose Ramirez more, I don't know how feasible that is with Kyle Manzardo and Josh Naylor playing the at-bats. Freeman, Roquio, Arias can all play some third base, and hopefully you can get something out of them. It's risky. They may not be as good as you think they're going to be. I don't know. But Cleveland's got to get into the playoffs somehow, and I think a rested Jose Ramirez trying to take care of that body and trying to make sure he's at his peak when they get in the playoffs is so important. He's going to fight it. He's going to be kicking and screaming if you tell him he can't play 155 games a year, whatever it is. But Cleveland's best bet is to build depth, whether or not they can do that, whether or not Ramirez plays 150 games or not. But it's important for them to take care of their star. If they're not going to have the Kyle Schwarbers and the Nick Castellanoses and the Bryce Harpers, they've got to protect their star. They've got to be able to build depth, and they've got to be able to get him to play less games in the future and take care of that body long term, so they can have more bites of the apple with him, and they can get some of these other guys to play, and they can figure out if they're part of the future, and if they can get them in, if they can do what they did a little bit in 2013. We're talking about more about bullpen depth and just building depth in general on a name you should be aware of for 2014. Don't think of a name for 2014. Think of a name for 2024. Speaking of building depth medical in your medical cabinet is not a bad thing either. If you are one of those people who has a hard time getting doctor's appointments, who doesn't, it's hard to get in sometimes. If you're traveling a lot, if you have a hard time, sometimes you just get sick and it's hard to get to the doctor or hard to get to the pharmacy to get some medication to get you through. Jase Medical lets you customize the Jase case and contains 5 essential antibiotics. I know Jeff always talks about needing these things on hand for small little things that pop up. They can treat the most common deadly bacteria infections. And like I said, you can customize your case to add additional medications based on your unique needs. They're constantly trying to expand the medical offerings, recent efforts. They've added a bunch of other stuff as well. Like I said, if you're one of those people who's traveling, this is really good to have on hand. Maybe you have a kid. kids always get sick. Or if you just, like I said, you unprepared, maybe you can't get into the doctor, maybe you can't get to the pharmacy, maybe the pharmacy is short on something. The Jase case has those 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. So don't get caught unprepared and take control of your medical needs. Go to JaceMedical.com, enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That is promo code LOCKEDON at JaceMedical.com. Got 2, I believe, ALCS and NLCS games, both going to be on Sirius XM on Friday. So whatever you're doing on Friday, make sure you're tuned into those games on your Sirius XM app just by searching for those. Okay, one of my favorite writers, mostly because I used to work with him at Prospects Live, Jeff Ponce, who is now at Baseball America, had a good article today about Ryan Kirkering and how the Phillies added him to their bullpen. Their bullpen's so deep, and you can see you need a deep bullpen in the playoffs. Nothing new. We know that from 2016, right? Andrew Walters, he wrote an article on, Jeff wrote an article on relievers who could be the next Ryan Kirkering, who's a guy who could fly to the minors next year and be on a pitching staff late in the year very quickly. Andrew Walters, Cleveland's second-round pick last year, was on that list. I know Jeff's talked about him here on our draft streams and other things like that. We've kind of mentioned him. Probably should mention him a little more. He was on Jeff's list for the Guardians, a guy who throws in the upper 90s, can hit 99 at times, sits in the mid-90s. There's a lot of good characteristics about his fastball, a lot of ride, a lot of arm side break, and he's got a mid-80s sweeper that also generates a lot of whiffs, Jeff says. 2-pitch mix, and has very good control. I mean, this guy struck out 15 batters per 9 in college. It was an incredible strikeout rate in college, and walked less than a batter per 9. He had 72 strikeouts and just 7 walks in 44 innings as the closer. So he's got control. He's got high octane stuff. This is probably a guy we should talk about more for next year as part of the bullpen. We've talked about maybe you can add, Daniel Espino if you're so lucky, if he's healthy. We've talked about Franco Alamon being part of it. We talked about Cade Smith. Andrew Walters is probably one of the guys we should talk about on that list who could be part of the bullpen next year. Cleveland's got a lot of decisions to make this offseason, right? They've got Clase and Henches, who are guaranteed spots next year, and Stefan, who they paid. Well, they didn't pay him a lot of money, but there's some things to figure out with Trevor Stefan, as we've said on the show multiple times. Daniel De Los Santos, solid year. I don't really know you want to bring him back or not. I mean, you might as well for the money it's costing. It's not a whole lot. You don't have a lot of depth in right now on the 40-man roster. They could add Cade Smith. They're going to add Espino. Who knows when he'll be healthy, but they have to add him anyway. They don't have a lot of up and down guys, and Alamon doesn't need to be added till next offseason, and Walters is further down the line. But if Cleveland's lucky and they're in a situation where they need to add bullpen, I used to say, like, I'm always in favor of adding relievers in the offseason if you can find good fits. And De Los Santos was a great story for this, right? He was undervalued, and Cleveland found some things to fix, and it worked out very well for them. And Cleveland's good at doing those things, and they should always do those things. Running back a bullpen, as we saw this year, is almost never a good option because you can never guarantee the success year to year. And, they had hiccups this year. So, you might like to think that, okay, next year they'll be better. But, Nick Sandlin and Eli Morgan proved a little untrustworthy at times. Obviously, Stefan did too. I think Clase had a lot of fluky things happen to him, but he'll be fine. James Karinchak, I have no idea what's going to happen with him. I think he's a non-tender candidate, but he's not going to make that much money, and I don't know. But I'm in favor of trying to add someone externally young. I'm not saying go out and spend money on a free agent reliever because that never works, or someone who is just maybe coming past their prime. But I'm in favor of adding options to have just in case things go wrong. But internally, I'm actually kind of excited. I think that Franco Alamon can be one of those guys. I think Cade Smith can be one of those guys. And I think we need to start talking about Andrew Walters as one of those guys too. Jeff is very smart. Jeff Ellis is smart too, but Jeff Ponce is really smart. He's really good at what he does and knows the data, knows the guys, talks to the right people in the industry, sees these guys pitch. He's got a lot of years doing it Prospects Live and now Baseball America. I was excited about Walters before, and I think I'm even more excited about him now. That's a guy that could be part of the bullpen mix. If things falter next year with whoever, if it's De Los Santos or Stefan or Sandlin, and and Morgan. Like, that's 3 guys potentially. I think one of those guys, whether it's Alomar or Smith or Andrew Walters, I think one of those guys could emerge as a legitimate bullpen weapon for Cleveland next year, and they're going to need it. They need depth. Number one, we talked about building depth. They need that, and I used to think that, having rookie relievers in the bullpen and for a postseason run is super dangerous. But look, the Phillies added Orion Kirkring to the relief to their bullpen for the playoffs, and he barely pitched. Cody Allen didn't have a lot of experience when he came up. I think that was 2012, actually. So, yeah, I think, either you can pitch or you can't. I think Cleveland gets to know these guys and their mentality and see what happens. I should mention Tim Herron. I think Tim Herron will be better next year, too, as well. So, actually, I think there's a lot of candidates for this bullpen to improve it internally. Pretty excited about that, and I think we should definitely talk about Walters more as an option there. And like I said, if you can pitch, you can pitch. I'd like to be able to add someone who has gotten out at the big league level before, as a supplement. But these guys, if you get them up and they can pitch, get them on the roster. Forget about Rule 5. If you're in the playoffs, especially with relievers, Franco Alomar, high octane guy. Cade Smith throws hard. Control's kind of an issue for him. Andrew Walters throws hard, and he's an older player. Relievers burn out fast. Look at Clase. I know people are going to point to Tito and say it's Tito burning out relievers fast, but in general, relievers burn out fast. Get the most out of them. If I understand not wanting to add guys to the 40 before they absolutely need to be added, but relievers really shouldn't be in that consideration, especially if you're contending. If Cleveland's contending next year and Walters or Alomar can help him in the bullpen, absolutely add them to the 40. Put them up there, get them in there. They have the stuff to do it. So when we talk about bullpen coming in the next year, those are guys to keep on your radar, and I think you should add Andrew Walters to that list. We might even have Jeff Ponce on over the offseason talking about Walters and some other prospects and some other things in general as part of some of the interviews we have lined up for the offseason. We're going to talk about the Guardians ballpark renovations coming up right now and why it is so important for them to get it right. If you get your picks right on Sleeper, you can win up to 100 times your money on cash on daily fantasy baseball. Shockingly, no home runs hit in the Phillies-Arizona game. That was a great game. Hope you didn't take the over on innings pitched by Brandon Pfaadt. Such a controversy right now. Astros and Rangers, home runs are being hit left and right. Pitchers are getting pulled early in that one. I would probably pick home runs in Game 4 for the Philly and Arizona because they're both starting relievers. So I would pick a Schwarbaum. I would pick Nick Castellanos, hits a lot of home runs. I would pick Corbin Carroll. I'm waiting for Corbin Carroll to break out. Postseason is exciting, and you can pick over on home runs, hits, strikeouts. Maybe one day you can pick the over on strikeouts for Andrew Walters in the playoff game for 100 times payout on Sleeper. So get your picks right, and you can win big. If you use promo code LOCKEDON, you'll get up to a $100 match on your very first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And you can catch the playoff games I just talked about on your Sirius XM app. Just search for the team or game you are looking for on the app. Haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, but ballpark renovations have started for Cleveland. They've already started to remove the shipping containers in right field that everybody has had very strong opinions about over the years. I don't have, I guess they don't look great aesthetically. They're kind of fun, though. They did give Cleveland kind of an advantage in the playoffs. They were loud and fun to make noise with. And as you can see in Philadelphia, if you're watching, they do a great job of making that ballpark loud and fun. And they don't have that kind of thing, I guess. But maybe it's more organic in Philadelphia. But the Oscar Gonzalez walk-off against the Yankees, saw the videos for those. It was loud. Not necessarily because of shipping containers. Anyway, I did think those gave Cleveland an element of noise that you don't see every day, but it's going to be good. They're gone. They're already taking those out. We know the renovations from the first set of blueprints that came out originally when they did those. They were supposed to look very different, and they ended up looking like the shipping containers. Everybody had very hot takes on those. They're also redoing the East 9th Street side of the ballpark. If you've been downtown, you've seen the renovations going on there and blowing that out a little bit, and the fences are up for that. It's made traffic a little bit heavier if you go down there. And they're obviously going to redo the third base side too. We're talking about the Terrace Club is going to be gone. It's going to be more outdoors with, more, I don't want to say drinking. I say bar-like area. It's going to be more of a fun area like it has been for the corner. Very hard to argue the corner hasn't been successful for Cleveland. I remember early on people talked about how people only go into ball games because they want to, drink, and they're not really watching the game. They're hanging out with their friends in the bar and whatever. I feel like those comments died down over the years because, especially this year, attendance was up this year for whatever reason. I like to think it's the rule changes were good. You had the shorter pitch clock move things along. People could get out of there a little bit faster, and the game was moving along a little bit, and probably some residual of the team being good last year. We'll see, and signing Jose Ramirez probably had something to do with that. We'll see what the carryover for like that is in 2024. But I think those have died down because, people go to the ballpark to do whatever. I know people are going to get upset about saying, well, no one wants to go to watch the game anymore. For Cleveland, be glad they're there. Be glad people are coming to the ballpark, no matter what they're doing. They're there. I went to a game this year, and I spent a little bit of time in the corner bar watching the Ohio State game. I was still there for the Guardians game, but I watched some of the Ohio State game because I was interested in watching that. I don't know. I'm not saying I would have skipped the Guardians game if I couldn't watch part of the Ohio State game in the corner bar there when I first got there, but definitely helped that I was able to go there and watch at least the first half of the game before the Guardians game started. But these renovations are important. I think those things will die down. The corner bar has been very successful. It's been a good gathering place for a lot of fans to go, and even the drink rails, things like that. And these next set of renovations need to be very good for Cleveland. It's got to bring in more people. It's got to keep the same level of attendance up this year. It's got to help do that. But not only that, it's the ballpark village concept has to come to life. That we've talked on the show before, I believe, about David Blitzer and the plan for him. Look, the payroll is not going to really change a lot with him early on, and we know he might have a shorter path to majority ownership, but we've been told that, not to expect massive payroll changes with him. It's going to mostly remain the same. And I think part of that is because they're waiting for the ballpark village concept to come around. We've already seen articles out there about how the team wants to buy the Eastgate Garage. If you're not familiar with the Eastgate Garage, it connects Progressive Field to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. It's where a lot of people park for either one of those events. It's right between the two. It's technically the cheapest option, really, if you want to park close to the ballpark because it's city controlled and the prices never go up or down. It's actually one of my favorite places to park, even though it can be a pain to get out of. But the team is buying that. They want to buy that because it's part of their ballpark village concept. And that's why Blitzer was brought in, was real estate development around the ballpark. And that Eastgate Garage is going to be probably phase one of that. There might be more to it. Look what the Braves have done. The Braves are a slightly bigger market, and I've heard people talk about how it's hard to get to games there because of the location, because it's in Cobb County, and not a great look. Cleveland doesn't really have that issue. It's downtown, even though people are kind of moving away from downtown a little bit. But the ballpark village is what's going to drive payroll in the coming years. Anybody who's watched baseball or paid attention to baseball the last several years has talked about how TV money is what's driving payroll. TV money is where most teams are getting their revenue. It's not ticket sales, it's TV money. And we know that's drying up. There was an article on MLB Trade Rumors aggregated it. I'm not sure if it was from The Athletic or who it was from, quite frankly, but I saw it on aggregated on MLB Trade Rumors about how the Twins are going to go in the offseason with a little bit of payroll uncertainty because of the TV contract. Cleveland is going to be in the same exact boat because they're on Bally's. They're going to be figuring out where they're going to play games and where the TV money is going to come from. Major League Baseball is not 100% sure. And that is why these ballpark renovations are super important, because the TV money is not going to be the main driver that it was. Atlanta's big driver is Ballpark Village. It's the Battery. All these other places, Citizens Bank Park has a lot of places to hang out too. All these ballparks are transitioning to this concept, this Ballpark Village concept. Buying the land around the stadium, building apartments, restaurants, shopping centers, places to go during the game and whatever, all connected to the ballpark. And that is a revenue stream that goes right to more millionaires. We want those millionaires and billionaires to spend the money on our baseball team, okay? I'm not saying We should give them a pass for not spending money now, but we want them to spend more money, right? So we can see Cleveland win a championship, so we can see Jose Ramirez get some help. That's why they need to do some load management, Jose Ramirez, this year. So when Ballpark Village is built, and he might still be here, he'll still have some legs under him to have some good seasons when that materializes. Who knows when that'll be, but to kind of bring things full circle here. But that Ballpark Village concept is going to be huge. The way TV is changing right now, streaming, nobody is carrying MLB Network, or there's a lot of things that don't have Bally's, and there's a million streaming services out there, and they're trying to have portions of live sports. You're paying money for Amazon Prime to watch a Thursday night football game, and you're paying Peacock for Ohio State games, and everybody's trying to get a piece of live sports. And baseball is having a hard time fitting in. You know, there's reports that Bally's wants to retain NBA and NHL and drop baseball, and the TV money is not going to be what it was, and that's been a big driver of payroll. And attendance being up this year is definitely good for that if you want Cleveland to spend more money. And again, I'm not arguing they are spending enough. I think all baseball teams can afford to spend more. Because look, if you're going to own a team, own a team. Look what Trevor May said. If you're not going to spend the money, sell a team to somebody who will. And I'm not suggesting anybody go out and go into the red, but I understand these things are run like a business. But at the same time, if you have the money to own a team, if you have the money to own a Corvette, have the money to pay for the gas. But the Ballpark Village thing is absolutely huge. These renovations are huge because this is going to become a major revenue stream that's going to supplement or replace the TV money that used to be big from TV contracts. The Cleveland's not going to get anymore. A lot of teams in baseball are not going to get anymore. So keep an eye on these renovations. Keep an eye out there for rumors on the Ballpark Village concept, all those things, because they are going to be huge to Cleveland's future. You are huge to the future of Locked On Guardians. Thank you for listening this week and all the time you every day, as we really appreciate it doing your part. Please leave us comments, downloads, ratings, reviews, all that kind of good stuff. Have a good weekend, or whenever you're listening to this, we'll be back in your feeds on Monday with another episode. Jeff will be back with his maybe his cat swatting him in the face. But in the meantime, everybody have a good one. Thanks for listening, and go Guardians, go.